Welcome to the Trellix Spotlight series. My name is Nick, and I will be your host. Today's session will focus on endpoint detection and response installation on Linux and Mac. This webinar will be recorded. If you prefer not to participate in the recorded session, please feel free to disconnect at this time. A link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees. This webinar is a brief overview covering common use cases and scenarios regarding this topic. It is not intended to be all-encompassing. If assistance is needed, please contact Trellix Technical Support. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A window. This webinar may run longer or shorter based on your participation, and we recommend asking as many questions as you can to make the most of this series. If the Q&A window is not displayed, click the tab at the bottom of your session window and click on the Q&A icon. We will answer the questions during the final section of this webinar. If you experience any audio issues during the webcast, please drop and attempt to reconnect. Our presenters today are Aravind and Chaitanya. Aravind has over 4 years of experience with Trellix products. He specializes in non-Windows platforms and is currently providing support for all Mac and Linux endpoint security products. Chaitanya is a technical support engineer with expertise in Trellix Mac and Linux products with over 3 years with the company. He is currently delivering support and KB creation for all Mac and Linux endpoint products globally. Ladies and gentlemen, Aravind and Chaitanya.
Thank you, Nick. Hey everyone, thank you for joining today's session. Let's quickly move on to today's agenda. We will be looking into what is EDR, and let's see how do we get started with the Trellix EDR and the process of creating an account. Followed by that, we will discuss on how EDR works with Trellix EPSAS and the on-prem EPO. We will quickly discuss about the system requirements and the possible methods of EDR installation on the Linux and Mac operating system. And we will also look into the installation process of the EDR on Linux and Mac operating systems, followed by a practical demo. Post that, we will have a quick overview of the roles in the Trellix EDR and their capabilities. Finally, we will conclude on how do we manage the EDR services on the client machines and the uninstallation of the product. All right, let's quickly see what EDR is all about. It is a cloud delivered service which provides continuous monitoring, data collection, and advanced analytics. This helps you to detect, investigate, and respond to the threats, and also detect suspicious behavior on your network. Now, the EDR also provides alerts, alert tracking, and data visualization of all the events collected from the system. With this data, one can quickly understand the threat and take immediate action as needed. It helps the SOC analysts to analyze and perform a guided investigation. And also, EDR summarizes and provides the visualized evidences from various data sources. This capability will help you a lot to investigate on how did the attack happen with the assistance of artificial intelligence, which is empowered by rich data that is being fed to the EDR backend. The rich data that is stored in the Trellix EDR helps us answering several key questions to advance the investigation. So one can have a deep understanding of the threat and respond immediately with the single click response capabilities. With all these capabilities, you can perform investigations and quickly determine and the risk of incidents and also their root cause, which in turn will reduce the need of expertise and the effort that is put into all the investigations that are being performed. Now, let's see how to get started with the Trellix EDR. In order to start with the EDR, first we need to register for the EDR console access to monitor and perform investigations. And once you are registered with the Trellix, you will be receiving an email with the instructions to activate your Trellix account. In case if you have already purchased the product, you would be receiving an email with the activation link and the steps to set up your account. if you are looking to explore the product, you can register for a trial account and go ahead and explore the product. Let's get into the step-by-step process on how we can sign up for the EDR account. First, navigate to the URL here, which is auth.ui.trellix.com to sign up. And you would be getting a sign up button on the screen. Once you click on the sign up button, you would be receiving a registration form where you will be asked to enter all the details. Please to make sure that you are entering all the required details here and accept and click on start trial now. Once this is done, you would be receiving an email with the instructions to set up the account. All you need to do is wait for the email, and once you get the email, you'll have to go ahead and click on the activation link present in the email. It'll take you to a screen where you will need to set the password, and please do enter the password twice and confirm. Once the password is set, the next screen will be prompting you for the email address and the password which you have currently set. Once you have entered the details, click on next and sign in. You would be taken to the EDR menu where it'll list the products as below. In here, just click on the Trellix EDR and it would take you to the Trellix EDR account. Once you are in the account, you can perform monitor and perform investigations on the client threat alerts. And a point to be noted here is that if the Trellix EDR UI is inactive for more than 40 minutes, the user will be logged out of the session. And also, if the user is logged into the Trellix EPO and the EDR, and if they log out from the EPO, for instance, it will automatically log the user out from the EDR. So we need to make sure that you are logged into both the EPO and the EDR. All right, over to Chaitanya.
Thank you, Arvind. So before we go ahead and discuss about EDR architecture, let me tell you there are two different mode of setups. Number one, Trellix EPO on-prem, and the second one is Trellix EDR on Trellix EPO SaaS Cloud, which we will discuss in a couple of seconds. Now, let's understand Trellix EDR extension. In EPO, for every product, we need to check in a couple of extension. Likewise, for EDR, we have to check in related extension. To name a few, CloudBridge, DXL, EDR client, so on. And the second component here is Trellix EDR Cloud Service is a cloud delivered service that enables you to detect, investigate, and respond to threats. And also, EDR provides continuous data collection and advanced analytics that helps you to detect suspicious behavior on your network. Now, the EDR extension and Trellix EDR Cloud Services talk to each other, communicate via DXL broker. Now, second in the list is Trellix EDR or the endpoint systems, the Mac and the Linux. On these systems, we install Trellix EDR client packages. Whatever the extension which is checked in the on-prem EPO and the EDR level policies further communicate to Trellix endpoint systems via DXL channel. And also the EDR client package can communicate with EDR cloud service via DXL broker. Now, last but not the least, AWS S3 bucket. The the traces which are enabled on the Linux platform, these traces would be collected and sent across to the AWS S3 bucket. So this is how the overall Trellix EPO on-prem architecture looks like. So now let's understand Trellix EDR on a Trellix EPO SaaS cloud, how the high-level architecture looks like. First of all, Trellix EPO SaaS hosted on a cloud. Unlike on-prem, no need to check in the extensions for the point products. Here, the products are always on latest version. Having said that, the latest EDR version is 4.1.0, which is already available. Now let's talk about the Trellix EDR cloud servers, which we discussed in the previous slide. Now here, the DXL broker is not required like the on-prem EPO. EPO SaaS will communicate directly to the EDR cloud service and vice versa, as the both components are hosted on the cloud itself. And here comes the endpoint systems, where we will install a Trellix agent plus a Trellix EDR client packages. Via agent and the EDR client packages, the system will communicate with the EPO SaaS and the EDR cloud without any further hassle.
Moving on to the installation flow of the EDR, the first step would be to check for the compatibility of the operating system with the EDR client. Once you confirm that the operating system is compatible with the EDR client, and next you would be deciding on the type of installation that we use to install the EDR client to the machines. And for example, if the EDR client is not compatible with the operating system that you are indenting the product to be installed, you can go ahead and raise a product enhancement request following the KB article, or you can submit a request with the technical support for the supportability. And now coming back to the installation, we recommend two modes of deployment, which would be EPO or standalone. Ideally, EPO is mandatory for the EDR setup. You can still install the EDR client as a standalone on the endpoint machines. However, post the installation, it needs to connect to the EPO and the EDR UI to report the machine behavior and the threats. Now, using the Trellix EPO SaaS or the on-prem EPO, you can push the EDR client from the EPO using the client task, whereas in the standalone, we can install the client locally on the machines. We will look in detail about how we go about the installation process in few minutes. And now we can look into the system requirements. Prior to installing the EDR, we have to make sure that the minimum system requirements are met. Here we will discuss about the hardware and software specifications that is required to install and use the EDR. When we plan to upgrade the software or to roll out the software in the production environment, these requirements should be reviewed before proceeding. Looking at the requirements, EDR supports Intel 64-bit processor running 2 GHz or higher for both Linux and Mac, and minimum of 2 GB RAM and 4 GB of hard disk space is required for the installation and functioning of the product. In Linux, we need to make sure that the following directories are having required disk space. The first one is OPT McAfee MVEDR. This is the default installation directory, and usually it would not need more than 100 MB of space. And the next is var McAfee MVR data. And this is the directory which stores the logs trace DB and the file hash DB. And this as well is not expected to exceed 3.5 GB. Talking about the CPU, single core of CPU is the minimum requirement, but we do recommend dual core Intel Pentium processor or any compatible architecture. Now let's talk about the network requirements. EDR, it requires to be in constant communication with the DXL broker, DXL client, and the EDR client. So you need to make sure that the specific network ports and the URLs are allowed in your environment. Also, you need to make sure that the SSL traffic inspection is disabled on the following URLs and the IPs to have the network settings configured correctly. And here is the Trellix EDR URL list and the ports that are needed to be allowed in the environment to ensure the seamless communication within the EDR components. The EDR allowed list contains the URLs based on the geolocations where your EDR tenant is hosted. You may need to configure the settings accordingly. For instance, your tenant is hosted in US West, then you will be using the first URL. Likewise, for the other geo data centers. And these are the ports that are needed to be allowed in your environment in order to have the EDR components communicate seamlessly. You can also refer the product guide, which will have the complete information on the ports and the URLs that are needed to be configured for the EDR setup. Okay, now let's quickly jump onto the demo session of EDR installation on Linux and Mac machines. All right, before we proceed with the installation, there are few prerequisites for the on-prem EPO. We will look into that in here. First, we need to make sure that the extensions for the EDR and the client packages are checked into the EPO master repository. For that, you can go ahead and download that from the software catalog, and also you can download it from the product download site. And once you are done with the components, you need to make sure that the EPO is connected to the EDR tenant using the Trellix EPO Cloud Bridge. For that, you will have to provide your credentials. Let's look into that in the EPO. In this setup, I have all the required extensions checked in. To get into the extensions, click on the menu and click on extensions. And you can see the available extensions that are checked into your EPO. Here, I have all the dependent extensions checked in, Envision EDR and Trellix TXL, and also the CloudBridge extension. You can see the CloudBridge extension. Now let me manually go ahead and check in the Trellix EDR extension in here just to walk you through on how do we do that. Click on the install extension button here. Choose file. And I have the MVEDR client extensions downloaded from the product download site. I'm selecting that and click on OK. Now it'll show you the details of the extension. And once you click on OK, it should load. Now we do see the Trellix EDR extension loaded. And once all the extensions are loaded, you have to make sure that the EDR is communicating to the EDR tenant. For that, we will have to go to the menu. Under configuration, you can see the server settings. Click on the server settings, and here in the search for the SaaS. In here, you have the Trellix EPO SaaS Cloud Bridge. Click on the Trellix EPO SaaS Cloud Bridge, where you will have the details of your EDR tenant. And I have this EPO linked to a tenant already, so it is showing that the server is linked. In case if you need to link or relink with the Trellix EDR tenant, you can go ahead and click on the edit button here. And this is the page that you would be looking at. You will have to provide your Trellix EDR account credentials over here and then click on save. And then this EPO will be connected to your EDR tenant. And please to make sure that the account that we are using in here does have the administrator privileges in the EDR. And the detailed steps to how to link your account to the Trellix EDR is explained in the installation guide here. And another point to be noted is you will have to check the DXL Cloud Database connectivity. Click on the Cloud Database connectivity under the same server settings, and here you would get to see the URL which you use to connect to your Trellix EDR tenant. And this will be automatically picked up once you link your EPO to the EDR tenant. If it does not, you can always refer the installation guide to edit this URL in here. Just click on edit and it would ask you for the URL. You will have to paste any of these URLs on based on which data center your EDR tenant is hosted. You can configure that accordingly. Now, let's move on to the installation. For this demo, I have these two Mac machines connected to the EPU in which we will be deploying the EDR client on this Mac machine using the EPU. For that, you would need to select the host, click on the actions, agent, and edit task on the single system. And here you can see there is no task assigned to this machine. I'm clicking on new client task assignment, which will take you to the client task assignment builder. Here you have to select the Trellix agent as the product, task type as product deployment, and create a new task. I'm naming this task as EDR Mac install. And the target platform by default, it will be selected with Windows. For this instance, I'm selecting the Mac since we are installing it on the Mac operating system. From the products and components, go ahead and select the Envision EDR client for Mac OS for 1 and make sure that the action is set to install. Once this is configured, click on save and this will create a task and you can see that task will sit in here. I'm going to assign this task to the client machine to run immediately. And when this is set, once the client machine receives the task during the next agent server communication, the task would kick off on the client machine and the installation should go through. Save the task and you can see that the EDR Mac install is assigned to this machine using run immediately schedule. Now let's quickly send a wake up to the client machine from here. Post complete policy and task update and click on OK. Now the wake up is sent. Let's have a quick look onto the client machine. This is the machine which we sent the client task to. In here, this is already loaded with the endpoint security and the Trellix agent. So you can see that the agent is installed and the endpoint security is also installed. Now, since we have pushed the task, it should reach the machine in few seconds. We can also initiate the wake up from the client machine. Okay, let's wait for a few seconds for the installation to go through. And here you can see that the task EDR Mac install becomes active. So the installation has started and it should be going through in the backend. And you can also verify the installation progress using the installation log present in the var. I'm just trying to tail the var log. Install log. You can see that the installation is going through here. Okay, and you can see the system extension blocked prompt where it will require the user consent to allow the prompt, allow the system extension to be loaded to the machine. Now, All you need to do is click on Open Security Preferences. And in there, you would see a prompt from EDR. Let's get in here. You can see the prompt system software from application McAfee system application extension.app was blocked from loading. All you need to do is log in using your admin credentials and click on the allow option. Once this is done, the system extension should be loaded. And now we can see that the installation has been completed. OK, how do we check the installation is completed? Is by verifying the product on the machine. Just click on the manualet and click on About. And you can see that the Envision endpoint detection and response is loaded. Also, in the agent status monitor, you can see the task EDR Mac install is freed, and which means it is completed and freed. Now, send a communication from the client machine to the EPO so that it can reflect in the EPO. Another point to note here is you can check whether the system extensions are loaded correctly using the command system extensions control list. Here you can see that the system extension is loaded, active, and enabled. Now let's switch back to the EPO to see how it looks there. Here, this is the machine which we installed the EDR client just now. And there you go. You see the EDR client reflecting in the EPO. In order to make sure that the EDR is reporting to the EDR tenant, you need to make sure that the DXL status is connected. OK. Now let's move on to the standalone installation. In here, I have a folder created called EDR in the desktop. And now let me see where I am currently in. OK. I'm in the users and my username folder. Let me quickly go to the desktop. And here you can see the folder called EDR is created. Now we need to provide permissions to the EDR folder. Do a chmod nar 777 to the EDR folder. Now the folder is provided with the permissions. Now let's get into the folder. And here you can see the Envision EDR client package is already present. I have downloaded this and located it in the EDR folder. Now all we need to do is unzip the zip file. Now you can see that the files are extracted to this location. Now all we need to do is run this command. Installer -pkg / mv EDR 64 package -target / and this is the command to install the EDR client on your machine locally. So now you can see that the installation is going through on the command prompt. You should expect a pop-up which we saw in the EPO deployment as well. The same as that. There you go. You got the user consent prompt. Click on Open Security Preferences, and then here you should see the allow button. So I'm opening it up with my credentials. Okay, I'm clicking on allow. Now the extension should be loaded. All right, here you can see that the installation was successful. The same applies to the upgrade as well. In case if you are trying to install a later version of the EDR client, all you will be doing is creating a client task from the EPO to install the later version of the EDR client using the product deployment. The same goes with the local installation. Here, let's quickly check the EDR installation. Yes, you can see that the 410 is installed. And let's go through the command line options on how to check the service status. You need to direct to the user local McAfee MV EDR folder, and then you would see the MV EDR control there. Use the status. Here you can see that the MV EDR is running. The same way you can use the start, stop, and restart options for this service when you are trying to troubleshoot any issues. This is the for your reference, you can refer to this slide. These are the services which I discussed about. MVDR control start is to start the service, stop is to stop, and restart is to restart, and then you can check the status of the MVEDR using this. Okay, now that we have looked into the installation process of EDR, let's quickly move on to the policy configurations. Log on to your APO and go to the policy catalog. Here you can see the Trellix EDR. And under general option, you have 4 predefined policies. Now let's have a quick look into the my default policy. Click on edit. You will get into this policy and you have general system info, network flow, file hashing, trace, and logger options. Click on show advanced to see all the available options here. And under general settings, you can define whether the Trellix area data folders can be readable or not. And you can also define the content update settings as per your need. And under system info, the process history is by default disabled. When you enable this, this enables the process history collection capability on the client machine. And under network flow, you have the network flow collector settings. This is by default enabled, and enable network sniffing option enables the granular level of data collection on your network related activities. Below are the resource utilization settings that can be modified. These are the preset by default values, but you can customize as per your need. Below is the quarantine settings, where when this option is enabled, you can display the quarantine messages whenever there is a quarantine action taken on a client machine. The same way, you can customize these as well. Under file hashing, you have the file hashing enable on the device option. This is by default disabled. You can enable it. When this is enabled, it enables the capability of the files collector and the trigger capable on the client machine. Below are the resource utilization settings. As mentioned, you can customize these as well, but these are the predefined default values. Below is the exclusion setting, where you can exclude based on the operating system using the file extension, and the file paths. Moving on to the logger. Here you can define how you want to log the log files on the client machine. If you select none option under the logger format, it will not the EDR client will not log any log files on the client machine. And below are the log level. Buffer size is to define how many messages that the logger should hold before writing into the log file. And you can also define the maximum size of the log file as per your need. With that said, all these are the predefined set values. You can always go ahead and customize as per your need. And these are all the intervals are defined clearly in the installation document. Now, let's have a quick look into the EDR roles. In EDR, we have three main roles. One is SOC Analyst L1, SOC Analyst L2, and then the EDR Administrator. EDR Administrator is the highest privileged role in the EDR. They can configure the Trellix EDR, they can conduct investigations, monitor the threats, and also perform searches in real time and also the historical search. They can take action on the client machines and including the capability of the SOC Analyst L1 and L2, they can create and edit the custom collectors and reactions. Wherein the SOC analyst L1 will only be able to conduct the investigation, monitor the threats, and perform the searches. SOC analyst 2, in addition to the SOC analyst 1 capabilities, they can take action on the endpoints, which means whenever there is a threat alert reported from a client machine, they can go ahead and quarantine the machine, or they can use log out the user from the current session. They can also initiate a quick scan. These are the brief of the three roles we have in the Trellix EDR. Till this time, we have looked into the installation process on Mac machines. Now let's quickly move on to the installation process on the Linux machines. Over to you, Chaitanya.
As my colleague Arvind explained the required extensions of EDR and the relevant process, let me show you guys how to install EDR via on-prem on a Linux system. Now I have already logged into the on-prem API, and on the top left, you can see under my organization, I have created a subgroup called EDR Linux. And let me select the subgroup, and where you can see the host name 6xjrhel86 is the Linux system which is reporting to the EPO. Now, to save the time, I have already installed the Trellix agent on the system. After which, this particular host is reporting to the EPO. Now, let me go ahead and show you guys how to install EDR on the on-prem. I'll go ahead and select the specific host, and at the bottom, you can see under actions, go to the agent, and we'll do a deployment task. Let me select edit task on a single system. Now, in order to create a deployment task, I have to select a new client task assignment here. And as you can see here, one system is affected. And under product, let me select Trellix agent and then product deployment. Here, I'll go ahead and create a new task for this system alone. I'll give a name, EDR Linux, and further uncheck the Windows, check the Linux platform. Now under the products and components, you see a list of components here and the products. Let me go ahead and select EDR client for the Linux. And once you select that, ensure under action install option is selected and go ahead and click on save. Post that, under the schedule type, I don't want to schedule this task as I want to install only on this system for once. I will select the drop down, select run immediately. Post that, I'll go ahead and save the task. Once the task is saved, let me close this deployment task. Select the specific host where we deployed the EDR Linux and go ahead and give a wake up agent. And in the wake up agent, I will forcefully tell the agent to communicate back to the EPO. So let me go ahead and click on OK. Now give a minute so that the agent would communicate back to the EPO. Now, how would a cross check is once you select the specific host under products, you see I have a Trellix EDR and the specific version 4.1.0. So that's how you confirm the specific EDR client has been installed. Now, as we gone through the on-prem installation of EDR, let me switch to the local installation. Now, let's go through the EDR client install on a Linux system, how we install locally. First of all, I have downloaded the EDR client package from a Trellix download site, and I have moved the package to a folder called temp. So I'm already in the temp folder. Let me show you the EDR client package. As you can see, this is the EDR client package which I have downloaded and moved to the temp folder. Now the next step is let's provide permission to the specific Linux package. So now the permission is set. Now second step is I'll go ahead and create a folder called EDR. I'm navigating to the user which I have logged in. In this specific directory, I have already created a folder EDR. So this is the EDR folder. Now we have to go ahead and give permission to this EDR folder. And the permission is set. To save the time, I have already unzipped the EDR client package in the specific EDR folder. So let me navigate to the EDR folder. Let me check where I am. Home apps Adam. The user have logged in. Okay, now we're into the EDR folder, ls. So after I extract the EDR client package, you can see the other packages like package installer script, setup.sh. These and the other sub files would extract. After extracting, these are the sub files that you can see. Now I'll go ahead and install the EDR client using a setup.sh. Sudo setup.sh. The information that you see regarding the agent, it's giving us details, including the certificates are getting updated. Now, looks like the EDR installation finished. Let's confirm by checking into the log. In order to check the install log, let me navigate to where log. I'll do a ls. And this, I have Amazon EDR client install log. Let's check the log. Now let's go through the installation log. First, it's checking for the OS compatibility, and then the Linux version is 8.7, creating the the MVEDR folder, and after that, preparing the packages and verifying the specific EDR package which it is extracted. And then here we can see the EDR client which is installed as 4.1.0. And then ending the Trellix EDR installation successfully. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the EDR service status. Systems TTL status MVEDR. As you can see here, this service is active and running. Okay. Now you can go ahead and restart the service, stop the service. Let me show you the commands. Systems TTL. I'll go ahead and stop the MVEDR. Now let's verify that. As you can see under the active, it says the EDR service is inactive. And the same command, systems TTL start MVEDR. Okay, that's an incorrect command. Let me try typing the exact one. Okay, looks like the command is successful. We can verify the status one last time. So here it shows the EDR is active. So this is how the local installation that you can perform on the Linux system. Now the services that we have checked, let me quickly show you the list of services that will be useful. So these are the list of services that we have just checked. Start MVEDR, and then followed by that we have stopped, and you can also check the other two commands. So this is how you would install and check the the MVEDR status, and then do the stop or start and check the status. Now let's log into EDR console and take a look at the systems, the Linux systems where we installed EDR client package recently. For that, I have already logged into Envision EPO, where you can see the console. And let me select the menu from here. I'll select a real-time search. In the real-time search, where you can check the list of Linux or whatever the systems that you install EDR clients, this is where you can check the system status. So as it is loading, let's give a minute. There you go. So now under this search option, so under this real-time search, I'll go ahead and type host info and host name. This would fetch the systems which are reporting to the EDR. I'll go ahead and select search. It's loading all the systems that are reporting to the EDR. So here you go. Here you can see the list of systems with the different host names, and the one that I have installed recently is this one, a Linux system, and another one we have here, a Linux system. So this is how you would confirm the systems are reporting. And another status you can see here, connection status, which says most of the systems which are reporting are online. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the details that the EDR is collecting from these systems which are reported. For that, I'll go to the menu. I'll switch to a device search. Now in the device search, under the device, I'll select the specific system that I want to take a look. So here, the system which I have installed the EDR client, let me select this. Now, towards the left, you can see the complete host name. Below that, it tells me which version of the Linux flavor. It says Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8.5. And below that, it also displays me the IP address. And further details, the artifacts, we do collect a number of artifacts in terms of process, executable files. So let's take a quick look at the process. Now here on the trace time, it'll tell you what time the specific user is logged in and what user. Is it a root user or a normal user? And the same time, it also tells you the specific path and followed by that the process name. So this is how you would check on the specific device what kind of details, what are the artifacts that we are collecting. Now, as we understood overall EDR architecture, the installation, the policies, and how do we check in extensions. Now, let's take a look at the how do we uninstall EDR from a on-prem API. As you can see, the console which I've logged in, it's an on-prem console. Now, let's quickly discuss or understand how we can create an uninstall task from an on-prem API to the endpoint systems. Now, I already have a group under EDR Linux, and then the system here is reporting to the API. Now, let me go ahead and create an install task. Action, and then the agent. So I'll create a new task here. Select the Trellix agent. Product deployment. You can go ahead and give a name for the task. Uninstall. And in the target platform, instead of Windows, you can select Linux. And then under products and components, ensure that you select the version which is similar to the endpoint systems where the EDR Linux which is installed. So ensure that the version is same when you uninstall. And once you select that, under action, drop down and select remove. So this is and the same configuration would be applicable for Mac also. Now, once you're done with this, click on save. Once you save the task, go back to the system tray, select the specific system, click on the wake up agent, and you select force and then click on OK, which will further provoke the agent on the EDR or the Linux system, and it will talk to the EPO. It will download the uninstalled task, and the EDR client package will be removed successfully. So with this, I conclude today's session, and I appreciate your patience and time joining for the session. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Aravind and Chaitanya. As a reminder for everyone, Trellix Education Services offers exceptional training to go along with our award-winning products. If you would like to learn more, please visit the website listed on your screen to see all of our offerings. Now let's get our Q&A session started. I see we have several questions, but it's not too late to add your question. Please type it in the Q&A window to submit. Additionally, take a moment to fill out the survey. Your feedback and suggestions are always appreciated.
Is endpoint security mandatory for the EDR setup?
Sure. I'll take that question. Endpoint security is not a mandatory requirement. However, EDR and the ENS share the core components. So if you plan to install the endpoint security with the EDR setup, you have to make sure that the version compatibility is met before you install.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Is the trace feature available for Mac machines?
Yeah. Yes, we have the trace feature introduced for the Linux operating system in EDR 4.1, but the trace feature is not available for the Mac OS yet.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Can we test the functionality of EDR using any test files available, like the iCar test file for endpoint security?
Let me take this one. Yes, we have test files for Linux and Windows. And how to test these files, you can refer to a KB article, KB 93745, for more detailed steps. And for Mac, you can always use or perform a real-time or historical search.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Is it possible to avoid the system extension consent prompt when engaging the end user to provide the credentials for install?
That's a good question. Let me answer that. Yes, the system extension can be approved without user interaction. However, in order to do that, using a management profile system extension payload, which can be pushed from an MDM solution.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Can we connect two EPO servers, an on-prem EPO and an EPO staff, to one EDR tenant? Are there any restrictions to the number of EPO servers connected to the EDR tenant?
Yeah, I'll take that one. It is possible to have two EPS servers report to one EDR tenant, but there is a limitation that you need. It has to be either the on-prem or the ambition. Both at the same time cannot be connected to one tenant. And when you connect the on-prem EPO to the Trellix EDR, you have to make sure that you are providing the admin EDR credentials in the cloud bridge settings on the on-prem EPO.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. What should we do if we're not able to register the on-prem EPO with the EDR tenant with an error?
Yeah, I'll take that one. There might be many reasons. One of them is that if you have dual authentication set up for your EDR account, then when you register the EDR account with the on-prem EPO, you will not have the ability to authenticate code that you generate. So I would recommend you to check whether the dual authentication is enabled for the EDR account, and then disable that and try again by linking the EPO to the EDR. And in case if you have any other errors, we can always go through the logs to check what has gone wrong and identify the cause of it and work around that.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Can the registered email address be changed in Trellix EDR?
Let me answer this. Yes, the email address can be changed with the proper validation of a tenant ID, and that has to be contacted to a Trellix technical support to do this.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. It looks like that's all the time that we had for today's session. I want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar, and a big thank you to our presenters. As a reminder, a link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees. This concludes today's webinar. Stay safe, everyone.